This video is meant to solve the #1 problem I see when it comes to businesses trying to scale by hiring talent. To get started, I want to give you guys a quick story. So at 21 years old, I had spent the past year working 60 plus hours a week, making less than $5 an hour. And for the actual math on that, that's 28K bottom line split between two people, because I have a business partner. That's 14 grand over 3,120 hours worked, which is about $5. Now, at 22 years old, 1 year later, I moved into a $1 million penthouse in Miami. You can see my lease here, my rent, and now I'm 24. Since then, I've lost it all more than once, yet we've still managed to continue to grow our business by more than 200% year over year, created more 8-figure sales teams than any other recruiter that I know of, and made thousands of hires for our clients. How have we done all that? Learning how to make irresistible offers. I like to relate it to having an infinite life cheat code in a video. No matter what happens, you're able to continue to play the game if you can learn how to make irresistible offers. What is an irresistible? What does it do? Well, it gets you more attention, it gets you higher response rates, booking, show rates, close rates, collects you more cash, more profit, gets more purchases more times, and it gets you better customers. Which, that sounds amazing, right? How do I do that? What is an irresistible offer? So, well, an irresistible offer comes from your value proposition. And your value proposition is a simple statement that summarizes why a customer would choose your product or service, or why a candidate would choose your company. So you have two different types of value propositions within a business. You have a customer value proposition, of which you can actually have multiple of those if you have multiple products, multiple avatars, so on and so forth. And you have an employer value proposition, which again you can have multiple if you have different roles that you're hiring for, so on and so forth. So if your customer value proposition creates cash and it gets people to give you money so that you can stay in business, what does your employee value proposition do? Well, it gets you talent so that way you can grow your business. Because any business is going to reach a certain ceiling when it is limited to just one person. Now, if you have the ability to leverage labor and other people to help you grow your business, then you can surpass that ceiling. Now, why is it so important to craft a great value proposition or an irresistible offer when it comes to getting talent? Well, it's because top talent is the first and foremost important thing when it comes to building and growing a team. The analogy I always use is the driver of a race car. So if your driver is the talent, the race car is your business or your vehicle, the ramp up and onboarding systems are, your oil or your pit crew, then the driver is going to be the most important out of those three things. Why? Well, the analogy I always like to use is you can put a 13-year-old girl that's never drove before behind a Lamborghini with the best pit crew in the world versus a NASCAR driver in a 2000 Toyota Corolla with no pit crew, and I guarantee the NASCAR driver is going to win that race. Not only is it important to get top talent in order to grow your business and accomplish the goals and objectives you have when it comes to hiring talent in the first place, but it is near impossible to get that top talent if you don't have an irresistible offer. And that's because, well, they're top talent. Every business out there wants to work with this person. So they're getting a lot of offers. And if your offer isn't better than where they're at or the offers they're getting, then why on earth would they go and work for you? So the solution to getting top talent, which is going to help you scale and grow your business through labor, is your value proposition. Now, a classic line or reference that you can use is from The Godfather, and I'm going to make him an offer that he can't refuse. And that's because, simply put, if the offer is great enough, the person is going to do what you want them to do. For example, while I wouldn't recommend it, threatening someone is a great motivator, just like used in The Godfather. So if that's a part of your offer, it can definitely work in getting that person to do what you want them to do. Now, assuming you don't want to threaten people in order to get them to work for you, the rest of this video, I'm going to be showing you how to craft irresistible offers using the value equation and the elements that you can add to that core offer in order to enhance it even further. But before we get to, the meat and potatoes here in your value proposition and enhancing it further, we have to start with energy and effort. And the reason we need to start here, everything to do with avoiding having the another one of those problems. After onboarding and working with hundreds of business owners to help them recruit, if there's one thing that I have learned, it's that 95% of them have no idea why a candidate would choose them over a competitor. In fact, the answer I hear almost 100% of the time is something extremely vague, like, well, we have the best training, or support, or leadership, or whatever, which honestly means absolutely nothing. Like, there's no substance in that statement. Now, side note, I'm thinking about making a video compilation of all the answers I get during these onboardings, not just to prove my point here, but to overall bring awareness to this problem and show people how easy it is to make your offer that much better than the rest of the market. So let me know if I should do that. Now, the reason just being another one of those is a problem is because it makes you one of those jobs that, you know, when people talk about, they say, oh, you can get another job like that in a heartbeat. Well, that's not a good thing. And that's because you attract low quality people, you have poor retention, and likely low profitability per employee. The reason this is because people quit, whether it's, you know, before they ever even take an interview, or they actually start working with you and then quit, when they feel like the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. So unless you enjoy constantly replacing employees, then you need to improve your juice. So what does an irresistible offer look like? Well, first I'm going to start with a service-based example, as I think it'll be easier for the majority of people to relate to and understand. So here is quite literally an offer that we used a very, 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 very long time ago, and an offer that we have used much more recently. So the first one is, I can help you hire quality salespeople using social media. During this customer's first month, we generated 22 candidates from our service. I would love to hop on the phone with you to discuss how we plan to do the same with you. What days, times work best for you this week? Now, that is a terrible offer. Why? Well, the only thing it covers is a little bit of dream outcome and a little bit of time delay. We'll get more into that later, but you'll see. Now, here's the after. We've recruited thousands of reps, skilled 18 seven-figure and 6 8-figure sales teams, these numbers are a little outdated, and helped some of the biggest names in the industry like X. We fill your sales team or role in 90 days without interviewing hundreds of candidates, guaranteed, or you don't pay. We'll source, screen, and qualify the candidates to serve up highly qualified candidates that are interested in working for you on a silver platter. Sound fair enough? Now, knowing zero context, which service would you probably be more likely to use? I would assume the latter. Now, here is a little bit more advanced example for an employer value proposition. So here's the before. I'm bringing on a couple more experienced reps this quarter to personally mentor to net at least $20K a month as an associate broker at our firm. We'll provide you our fraud prevention program to prevent chargebacks and cancellations, exclusive leads, and I'd even be willing to pay you out of pocket to help make the transition if you're the right fit. Are you open to talking about other career opportunities within insurance? Now, for context, this is someone recruiting within their own industry, so there's a little bit more specific language there that is used that you may not be familiar with. But this offer is not bad. Honestly, it's a pretty decent offer. However, here's how I would make it even better. I'm a leader at a new IMO company that was recently launched with the mission of creating transparency at high commission brokerages. We have a never-changing comp structure, fraud prevention to eliminate roll-up debt and chargebacks, and an exclusive lead system to avoid our agents competing for the same dollar. In fact, we did over $24 million last year with just $4K in roll-up debt. Are you open to talking about other career opportunities within insurance? Now, even if you're not in insurance and you have some context about sales, you can understand how much better that after offer is. Between additional credibility added, a more believable dream outcome, and something that is more unique rather than make 20 grand a month as a broker, which plenty of people promise out there. Just those two things alone are already significantly better than the first offer. So let's see some numbers. What's the math behind, these before and after examples? Well, this example is using these scripts here, and these scripts were actually for the same client. We just improved their offer the second go around after they found it wasn't really resonating initially with their target market. So these were their metrics before. They messaged 541 candidates, had 2% reply, 8 interviews booked, 0 hires, and 0 revenue produced by hires, because obviously they were not. Now, after launching that new offer, they sent 724 messages, had 3% reply rate, which is over 50% increase, had 21 interviews booked, which is about 250% more. They had 3 hires and $80,000 in revenue produced from those hires within the first 30 days. So quite literally, just changing a couple variables within the offer and how it was communicated created an $80,000 difference within 30 days. And if that isn't reason enough for you to want to go ahead and improve your offer after this, then I don't know what is. Now, identifying your ideal candidate profile is the first and foremost thing that you have to do, because you can't come up with an irresistible offer if you don't know who you're coming up with it for. For emphasis on how important this part is, we have an 82% 6-month retention rate across all hires for roles that are notoriously known for poor retention, mainly being commission-only sales roles. And this section is the single biggest reason why. And for context, poor retention, most commission-only companies average around a 10 to 15% retention for 6 months. So 82% is 800% better. Now, the first step in identifying your ideal candidate is finding your starving crowd. And this is because if you have a starving crowd, a terrible business, a terrible employee value proposition, and terrible leadership, you're still gonna make money. Why is that? Well, I like to use the hot dog vendor example that Alex Hormozi uses and kind of popularize this concept. So if you take a hot dog vendor at a stadium where there's a bunch of drunk, hungry fans, they're going to be willing to pay way more for way less value. But you put that same hot dog cart in front of a church at 8 a.m. on Sunday, I don't care how good or how cheap your hot dogs are, I don't think you're going to sell a single one. All great organizations have a starving crowd, even if the talent you think of as top talent isn't the majority of their employees. Now, every great organization that you can think of has a starving crowd with their employees, even if they're not what you would necessarily think of as top talent, like the people that maybe go to work for Citadel or Google. Now, McDonald's has a starving crowd because there are always going to be people that are incapable of working any other job and need to make money, need to make a living. Now, Walmart, McDonald's, employers like these provide opportunities for those people where they need to make money somehow, and if you have no skills or no abilities, well, these places can give you an opportunity where you can still make money without skills or abilities. And there's a starving crowd for that. So while the people may not be the most skilled that work there, they are great fits for the role. And that is because, well, A, they desperately need what they have to offer, which is step A in identifying your ideal candidate. Now, the question I always like to ask people in getting started with figuring out who this person is and what they look like is, who is likely to be the most successful and bring you the highest revenue potential? And then from there, we can look for these ingredients to make sure that this is a suitable market. So again, the first one being massive pain, your starving crowd. Now, the next most important by far is going to be likelihood or ability to succeed, because let's face it, if you put someone who is a gas station attendant in a role where they have to do rocket science, well, it's probably not going to go very well. Then these latter two are really smaller parts of the equation, but still very necessary. If they're not easy to target, well, then you're not going to be able to get in touch with them. That's obviously very important. And lastly, you would like to have a growing market, because if you're going to target anyone, you might as well target a group that's growing year over year and is going to continue to help your business grow naturally. Now, on the flip side, you do not want to pick a shrinking market, because then your business is going to shrink year over year naturally. So, massive pain, we've already touched on a little bit here, but to elaborate a little bit further on this subject and why it's so important is because what you're looking for out of hiring someone is activity. You're looking for them to work. That's literally the name for the word. Now, what you're looking for when you hire someone is activity. You're literally looking for them to work. That is the entire point of hiring. Now, activity doesn't just come from anywhere. it comes from two places, or both: the movement away from pain and or toward pleasure. So this person must not just want, but desperately need what you're offering. And that could be either to, again, get away from the bad or go toward the good. But regardless, they're not going to do anything if they don't have that pain. And for context, in my experience with hiring thousands of people, I will take someone with motivation over experience every day of the week. And that's, being a black and white, like they either have motivation and zero experience or experience and zero motivation. And that's because it doesn't matter how much experience you have, if you're not doing any activity, you're not going to contribute any value to the organization. So the first thing you need is that motivation and that ability in and of itself to actually do the activity. Now from there, you would like the activity to be done well. And that's where it comes into the equation of finding people that have a high likelihood or ability to succeed. Because this is not only important for you, but it's important for them as well. Because if they don't believe that they're going to achieve what you're telling them they're going to achieve in this role, well then they're not going to do it. So what are the best predictors of success? Number one is past experience, then it would be process understanding. And other factors that are, important in predicting someone's success would be their environment, their access to resources, their beliefs, their rate of learning, and how good of a fit they are with the rest of the team. Now, rate of learning is a very, very large spectrum because, in all honesty, I think anyone can learn anything. It's just about whether or not it's worth investing into. Because if you're looking for someone to start designing a rocket ship immediately, well then you don't have the time to teach someone that has, let's say, a third grade understanding of math on everything they need to learn in order to design a rocket ship. So in a simple sense, the more or better these variables are, the higher likelihood of success. And I want to give you a cautionary tale here because it's a lot less frequent than the flip side, but I do see many people that have too high of a standard for what they are looking for compared to what they are willing or maybe even able to offer that person. And for an example here, if you look at college sports, well, a D3 school doesn't try to recruit a 5-star athlete. Why? Because it's not even worth the effort. Now, just like when it comes to serving consumers, you should be niching down your ideal candidate profiles. And that's because just doing that process is going to provide more value to your candidates and get you the highest volume of qualified candidates. And we can use the example below here. So let's say my niche is just college students. Well, I'm looking to hire college students. I guarantee you're going to get candidates from that. They're probably not going to be great, and they're probably not going to be very many. Let's take that a step further. Let's say we're looking for business majors. I'm looking to hire college students that want a career in business. I can provide you with an exceptional experience for business. Well, that offers better. It's probably going to get better people, more of them, but still not great. What about a business major and student athlete? I'm looking to hire student athletes that want to gain experience in business. I can provide you with a flexible schedule around your school athletics, exceptional experience, and help you translate the skills you've learned from athletics into business. Well, I think we clearly have a winner. Now, when you niche down, you want to ask yourself these two questions to identify which group is going to give you the highest likelihood of being successful. Which past experiences would produce the highest likelihood of success in this role? So for example, let's take that insurance example earlier. Well, if someone already has experience in insurance, that's probably going to be the best predictor that they will be successful. The next question is most important in providing the perception to this candidate that they are going to be successful. And that question is, which past experiences do I have an above average level of authority or understanding in? And that's because the closer in relevance something is to what someone is trying to accomplish, the more believable it is going to be for them. So for example, if you have the exact same upbringing and background as someone and you accomplish something, well, if you tell them that, they're going to have a much higher likelihood to believe and therefore actually go out and accomplish that same thing. Now, something I want you to do during this step that you'll revisit later is ask yourself, what the projected lifetime value of this employee would be, just so you get a good idea on what you'd be willing to invest in order to get this person on your team. Now, picking a niche can be very, very complex, and people can go back and forth and honestly overcomplicate the living crap out of it. So we came up with this super simple niche selection view for our clients to easily understand who they should be targeting, why they should be targeting them, and not be niche hoppers. So the first level here in low authority and poor offer means you should be targeting those that have relevant or general experience. And that's because your value isn't good enough to be better than where they're currently at, and you are really just counting on them to want something different, because there's no reason that they should go and work for you outside of they think the grass is greener on the other side. Now, let's say you have high authority and a poor offer. Well, industry experience is going to be best for you to target here, and that's because your offer is likely as poor as the rest of your competition. But you're going to provide them more perceived value by having more authority. So this person will see more value in what you're offering, even though it's the same crap, because it's dressed up in a nicer wrapping. Now, here's where it gets fun. If you have a great offer, and even if you have low authority, you can target whoever you want. And that's because most people, with the exception of those that have high authority and a great offer, are not going to be able to compete with what you're offering, and are not going to be able to keep the people that you are essentially taking from them. Now, the dream world is a great offer, high authority. You have both of those things, the world is your oyster. You can choose whoever you want, and they're gonna work for you. Now, the biggest problem I see with most people crafting their target market or their value proposition is they want to sacrifice the level of sacrifice they're asking for, or just offer higher pay. And this is almost always the wrong move. And that's because just getting people to accept the job is not your objective. Making money is your objective. So if you just give them all the money that you're gonna make, or if you just say, hey, I'll accept anything, whatever you're willing to do for me, hey, I'll take it. Well, then you're not gonna make money. So while I do recommend paying more for top talent, that isn't applicable to 99% of businesses, as they can't afford to pay 3 to 4 times the market rate. So instead of competing on how much you can pay them, maybe start with improving your offer in other ways first. Now, to kind of visualize what asking for less effort versus asking for more effort looks like, this chart really illustrates it well. So when you ask for more effort, you get a higher emotional investment from this person. They also perceive more value because they're more invested, which also gives them a higher likelihood to actually get results because they're more invested and they care, which decreases the amount of support they need because they're going to go and figure it out themselves if they need to. It ultimately increases the revenue you bring per employee. And a very similar parallel I like to give everyone, because anyone that is watching this understands this, and that is the cheapest customers are always the biggest pain in the ass, and the same exact thing applies with employees. So those that haggle you the most on effort are always going to be the biggest pain. So now that I know who I'm targeting, where do we get to actually coming up with the offer? So the basis of an offer is giving someone what they want, how and when they want it, a way that they believe. And the last part is very, very important, because you can tell someone, I'm going to give you what you want, exactly how you want it, when you want it, but oftentimes it's very unbelievable. Now, an example for that would be, hey, give me $1 and I'll turn it into $1 million legally and instantly. Now, odds are you wouldn't believe that, but a perfect offer would be a slight tweak and say, hey, I'm gonna give you $1 million if you give me $1 legally, instantly, and you don't even have to pay me until after I've done it. Now, who's gonna say no to that? I mean, you're gonna make the $1 million right in front of me and then I'll give you the dollar after you give me the million? I don't think anyone's gonna say no. Now, to figure out what these things are, you have to understand your ideal candidate. So you have to ask yourself, what are the goals and desires of this person? How do they want to get there? How do they want to get to that goal that they have? How is your role or offer going to help them get there? And ideally in the way that they want it to be. Now, let's say, for example, someone wants to get wealthy very, very quickly. Well, then I would offer them something that concentrates the value into wealth and speed and ignores every other part of the equation. So what other parts of the equation are there? Well, there are 4, and they come from the 4 things that people value. It's the what, obviously, that you're offering, certainty that they're going to get it, speed in getting it, and convenience, or the amount of sacrifice they need in order to get it. And you can find these variables in any transaction that there has ever been. Now, taking that same example from earlier, if someone wants to make money quickly, well, then I would create an offer that offsets the risk and sacrifice onto them, since they want a decrease in time delay and an increase in that dream outcome. So for example, I'll help you make the amount of money you want to make in the time you want to make it, but you need to give me 80 hours a week and there's a 90% chance you fit. Now, if someone, again, really by a wide margin valued the outcome and speed much more, then they would choose that offer. So your dream outcome needs to be unique. And I substitute the term unique result for dream outcome all the time, because to me, I look at them as the same thing. If you're offering the same dream outcome as everyone else, well then the only things that differentiate you are the other 3 variables. But if you're maybe offering the same solution as others, but the result in the mechanism appears to be unique, well then you've now created a difference between you and the competition, which gives you a leg up. Now, outside of the dream outcome, you have perceived likelihood, which is why your ideal candidate is going to be successful. You have energy and effort, which is what they will need to sacrifice to achieve that outcome. And you have time delay, which is how long is it going to take them to achieve that outcome. So, for example, perceived likelihood could be the famous scene in Wolf of Wall Street where Jordan Belfort's driving the crazy nice car. Donnie goes up and asks him, hey, what do you do for a living? Jordan says, oh, I do this. I made this much last month. And he says, no fucking way. You show me that, I'll quit my job right now. And he shows him how much he made last month and he quit his job. Now, again, just a movie there, but the concept is what applies. If you show someone and give them the belief that they're going to achieve what they want to achieve, well, that provides them value. And why is that? It's because people value certainty. Now, the sacrifice that they give could be, working remote versus in office. This could be the amount of hours they work. This could be financially investing in becoming successful. This could be certain days or seasons that they have to sacrifice. There's all different forms of sacrifice. And another form is opportunity cost. This is one that people tend to neglect. And this is especially important for employers because, well, most people typically have a job. So there's always going to be an opportunity cost. Now, time delay can be not just the end result and how long it'll take, but how long it'll take to reach certain milestones. Now, certainty is the most important aspect of an employer value proposition, and it's way more important than in a consumer value proposition. And this is because instead of asking someone for dollars, you're typically asking them to give you their time indefinitely. So if they don't believe they're going to achieve the outcome that they want from doing it, there is a 0% chance that they do it, which is typically why people take longer to make career decisions than they do buying decisions. So this is our social proof matrix. These are the 4 ways you can provide credibility, social proof, whatever you want to call it. And those are strength, frequency or volume, format, and recency. The best piece of proof would be an overwhelmingly strong piece of evidence that is right in front of your face, happened just now, and just happened 10 times over and over again. Now, obviously, having the best overall credibility is not necessary in order to create, a really irresistible offer. So here's the checklist that we use when we start working with an employer. We either make sure that they have these things or that they can get these things to us in a timely fashion before we get started. Feel free to screenshot this. Now, when it comes to the thought process behind creating your value proposition, there are 2 different thinking patterns people typically fall into. Convergent, which would be like math, 1 right answer. Divergent, which would be many right answers, with some answers being more right than others. So these are typically not even necessarily more complex problems, but just have a lot more variables, some known, some unknown. Now, the exercise we use with our internal team to help them get into a place of divergent thinking is the golf ball exercise. So how many uses can you come up with for a golf ball to provide value in, everyday life? And I'll give you, 2 minutes right here to go ahead and write those things down. So here's my list. Paperweight, stress ball, throw at someone, actually play golf. I'm surprised I came up with that fourth. A kid's toy, you could play baseball or other sports. You can play basketball with a golf ball. You can do anything with a golf ball, sport related, anything with a ball. Memorabilia, alignment tool, fetch, massage, torture, bounce, decorate. There's all sorts of different benefits you could get from a golf ball. Now, let's say the role you're hiring for is a sales role. Let's do the same thing. Well, you could improve your communication skills, negotiation skills, you could get better relationships, you could get better deals, you can, better resolve conflicts, you can make more money, you can meet more people, you can advance your career, you could advance your dating life, you could have more fun, you could travel, you could stack future skills on top of skills, you could stack future skills on top of sales to make yourself even more valuable to an organization. There are a boatload of things that you do. The list is honestly endless. It just depends on how much time you have to think and when you kind of reach a point of diminishing returns. Now, from there, you are in the thought process to think about how to create value. Now, the first step we've already talked about, identifying your dream outcome and your unique outcome. The second step is going to be listing all the problems that get in the way of achieving that outcome. So for example, let's say, the outcome is making money. Well, to make money, you need leads or people that want to give you money. You need sales, which is the act of them giving you money, and so on and so forth. Now, you need to create solutions for all of these problems because this is what is going to provide tangible value or substance to your offer. Because these things are all just perception. But where you actually create value in the world is by solving problems. So if you don't have solutions to these problems they're going to encounter, well, not only is that a crap offer, but it's debatably ethically wrong. Now, the next step is creating these solutions. They could be one-to-one, they could be one-to-many, they could be one to a small group. And further than that, we use the delivery cube to think about all the different ways that you can provide these. So not just the settings in, how many people, but do we do it for them? Do we do it with them? Do we make them do it themselves? How do they get support? Is it text? Is it chat? Is it email? Is it in person? Is it virtual? How do they consume the support? Is it a video? Is it a PDF? Is it a podcast? Now, how quickly can they get it? Can they get it 24/7? Do they get it certain hours? Do they get it certain days? And what would it be like if we 10x the value we were providing that solution? What would it look like if we provided a tenth of the value in that solution? These are all different ways you can think of different solutions to those problems they're going to encounter, reaching their dream outcome, which in turn is going to provide them more value. Now, this is the core offer checklist that we use when it comes to, kind of making sure you're on the right track with your offer and it's something that'll work. And if you're targeting the right people and you're communicating it effectively, well then the only reason your offer doesn't work is going to be for one of these 4 reasons. Is it what they want? Is it the way they want it? The timeline they want it on? And do they believe it's possible to get it that way, that timeline, and the thing in general? Now, here comes the enhancement. You've got your core offer. You provide both a high perception of value as well as tangible value. Let's jack it up even further. Let's make it incomparable to anyone else in the market. So the first step in that is scarcity. Now, I hate and I love scarcity. I hate it because it is the most gimmicky marketing tool out there, and the only reason that is because people use it like crap. And quite honestly, everyone has legit scarcity. It is very, 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 very improbable that you have the ability or want to hire everyone on earth. Therefore, you have real scarcity. You just have to figure out what it is. And let's say for some reason, even if you don't, let's say you have the ability and you want to hire every single person on earth. Well, you can still give scarcity. You can limit the bonuses that you can give. You can limit the guarantees. You can limit the sacrifice. There's so many different things that you can do. You just have to get creative. Now, urgency is kind of in the same boat as scarcity. It can be very much so overused, very gimmicky. However, again, the odds are you can't get someone started at any time that they want. If you can, okay, great. There's still ways that you can use urgency. You can use, again, bonus urgency. Like, hey, we have unlimited amounts of these, but you only get them if you do this within this time frame. Now, to determine the urgency you have, you just have to figure out the timelines that you need your roles and then promote those timelines. And honestly, it's going to further attract those that are a good fit and repel those that aren't. Because if you need someone tomorrow and you're promoting that you need them in a week, well, then you're going to attract people that are ready to get started in a week and not someone who needs a job tomorrow. Now, bonuses is where it gets fun. Employers these days are getting more and more creative with their bonuses, and you can go on these all day long. They're literally unlimited bonuses that you can think of. The sky is the limit. It is solely just up to how much you want to invest into providing them. Now, easy way to come up with bonuses, take all those solutions you came up with earlier, detach them from the core solution in your offer, so that dream outcome, and provide all those as smaller little bonuses. And on top of that, you can provide more bonuses that just enhance value as a whole. They don't even have to relate to the main offer. And easy ways to think about this are financial, education, entertainment, relationships, health. People value these things, they always will. If you provide them, that provides them more value. So let's say my main thing I'm hiring for is a sales role. Well, the main bonuses could be an easy follow system to generate leads. You can do it quickly at no cost, and you'll feel like you can do it forever because it's so easy. Now, what else could have bonus that isn't, part of my main thing? Well, you could give them health insurance. You could invest in personal trainers. You could invest in sales trainers. You could give them tickets to events. You could introduce them to people that could advance their career. You could give them a gym membership. Again, list is endless. Now, guarantees are the most underutilized element I see in employer value propositions. And for that very reason, it is one of the biggest difference makers I've seen in improving an offer overnight. And I think it's just because most people aren't aware that you can guarantee things when you make people job offers. Whether the offer is performance-based, say for example, commission only, well, I can guarantee you commission. I can do that conditionally. That way it makes sense for me in case you suck, and it still makes sense for you to give it a try. Now, even if the role isn't performance-based, there are still different guarantees you can make. So some examples, one that everyone's familiar with is tenure. You've heard the term, oh, this person's got tenure. Well, that means they're pretty much unfireable or have a lifetime employment agreement. What other guarantees? There's a seniority guarantee. Hey, we guarantee you certain decision-making power. You can literally, the guarantees are endless. You can guarantee bonuses, but I think you could guarantee a guarantee. Now, that's a joke, but you can stack multiple different types of guarantees. So, for example, you could give someone both an employment agreement and decision-making power. Now, this is the highest leverage of all value proposition elements, and it's not because it's going to make the biggest overall net contribution to value, but it takes such a tiny amount of effort to do that in comparison, the returns are massive. So why does a name affect your offer? It's because your title in life ties directly to your social status. Now, the greatest example of that is President of the United States. This is considered, the most powerful role or the most prestigious role in the entire world. You can dress up any single role out there. You give me a role, I'll make it 10 times better. So, for example, Walmart greeter, sales associate, solar panel salesman, natural energy consultant, recruiter, staffing advisor. I could go on and on. Now, the list really goes on and on. I mean, you can call a garbage man a, sanitation expert. You can call a dishwasher a silverware technician. The list is endless. But the point being, make your thing sound as attractive as possible. So, to recap with our 6 action steps. You need to, number 1, identify your ideal candidate profile and pick a niche. Number 2, identify your dream outcome. 3, identify how you'll provide perceived likelihood and complete those credibility action steps. Number 4, identify the minimum sacrifice and timeline required to achieve that dream outcome and do not negotiate. identify problems and solutions, then trim and stack so we can provide tangible value and not just a perception. Lastly, brainstorm how you can add scarcity, urgency, bonuses, guarantees, and name your offer. Boom, you've taken yourself from a commodity, a position that's just another one of those. You can get another one of those in no time, to, hey man, you don't want to lose that job. You got it good over there. Now, there probably should be some fancy call to action at the end here, but if you guys, want more value like this, go to our YouTube. If you want to work with us, go to apply to work with us. See you next time.